Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at installing Mint Linux on VirtualBox so we can virtualize that on a Windows machine. I know a lot of times people want to try new operating systems and things like that, but they don't want to give up the convenience of the operating system they already know. So today, like I said, we're going to take a look at virtualizing Mint Linux, which of course is a very popular Linux distribution. And we're just going to go ahead and take a look at that. It's based on Debian and Ubuntu, so it should be a very quick and easy install. So let's just go ahead and jump in and take a look. Okay, so this is Mint Linux, well, their website anyway, where you can learn more about the different versions, and you can get more information about the community and the user guides and all kinds of good stuff here. They've got a couple of different primary editions, the Cinnamon edition and the Mate edition. We're going to go with the Cinnamon edition today. It's the more common of the two. So we're going to go ahead and go over to there. We'll go to download, and then of course here we've got a couple of different options. Like I said, we're going to do the Cinnamon version. And I've got a 64-bit operating system, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And of course here there's some different options on how you can download this distribution, or this distro is a key term you might want to learn. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this, whether it's from a server or a torrent or whatever. I've already got the ISO, or the image file of the Linux install on my computer, so we're just going to go ahead and go through that process. But this is where you would go to download whatever version you want to get. You'll just download it from this page. First thing that we're going to do, we're actually just going to go ahead and minimize that. We've already got VirtualBox up and running, so no issues there. We'll go ahead and click New. Oops, I'm going to call this Mint Linux. And I'm just going to go ahead and it defaulted to all of the right settings here. So it is a Linux distro. It is based on Ubuntu. So we're going to go ahead and click Next. I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 gigs of RAM. And we're going to go ahead and create the virtual disk. This will just be an amount of disk space that the system will allow it to use over a period of time. So we'll go ahead and create that virtual disk. We're going to use a VDI, that's fine. That's just the hard disk type, or the file type rather. VDI is great for this. So we'll just click Next. Here where it says dynamically allocated and fixed size, we've got a couple of options. Like I said, we're going to give it 10 gigs to work with, but if we do a fixed size, that just automatically says we're going to take 10 gigs out of your available hard drive space. And I don't really want to do that just yet. So I don't know that I'll actually end up using 10 gigs. So there's no point in me at this point taking that much disk space away from myself. So what I'm going to do is say we're going to give it a dynamically allocated disk space, meaning it'll use whatever it needs to use for now, but it can go up to 10 gigabytes of disk space. So I'm a big fan of using the dynamically allocated disk spaces, or disk space size, just for that reason. So go ahead and click Next. And then now it's going to say, well, where do you want to store this file? By default, it's going to go onto your main operating system drive. And normally that's fine. It's just I'm kind of running out of room. I've only got about 60 gigs left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to this PC. I'm going to go to my mass storage drive, and then I'm going to go into VirtualBox VMs. And I've actually already got one in here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. That was some testing I was doing the other day. But I'm going to call this Mint Linux. And then I'm going to go ahead and open that. I'm going to click Save. And again, I'm going to use up to 10 gigs. And I'll click Create. And then we've got to actually set some parameters for it. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to go to Settings. Usually the general is fine. This is your name, your type, that sort of thing. The snapshot folder is fine. I don't care about any of that. Encryptions, whatever. The system, again, we've given it 4 gigs of memory that it can use. And we're going to go over to the processor. I'm actually going to give it 2 processing cores. One would probably work, but may as well give it what it can, so I'm going to give it 2. I could actually give it several more than that. I could give it up to 8, but that's a really bad idea since I've only got 8 cores to work with. So I'm just going to give it 2. Shouldn't have an issue there. Let's go to the display tab next. I always max this out. I like to give it as much video memory as I can. Remote displays, whatever. Video capture we're doing with a different program, so that doesn't matter for me. Storage, this I'm actually going to remove this, and then I'm going to actually create a new controller here. I'm going to choose a disk, and again, this is where I've got my my ISO or my image file. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that, and that's all fine there. Audio is fine. Network you can just leave as NAT. That way you can connect to the internet while you're in here. You'll want to make sure that you can do that. Unless you don't, and then you can actually just disable that. But I like to be able to connect when I'm in these operating systems. Serial ports I'm not going to worry about. USB, if you've watched my other videos, that you'll know that this is how we can share USB devices from the host computer to the secondary computer, in this case Mint. I'm not going to worry about any of that right now. By default it's going to automatically share keyboard and mouse, things like that, but if you wanted to share something like a webcam or an external hard drive or a thumb drive or something like that, you could do that here. The one thing to keep in mind with that is that if you've got it activated in the child operating system, the virtualized operating system, in this case again Mint, it won't be available in your host operating system. So it can only be accessible in one or the other at a time. If you need to access it in one, you have to disable it in the other, basically. So just something to keep in mind with that. Share folder, I'm not going to worry about shared folders here, nothing to worry about there. And then, so of course, that's really all of the settings that we need to worry about. So I'll just go ahead and click OK. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'll just, you've got a couple of options here. You can right click it and you can click Start. You can make sure it's highlighted and come up here and click Start. Or you can do like I do and I just double click. And it'll take it just a second to get started. The VirtualBox screen will come up. And then it says it'll automatically boot here in about 10 seconds, and that's just fine with me. So it will go through a bit of a boot up process here. It might take it 10, 15, 20 seconds, not too long. But what it should do after it gets past this screen is it should basically boot up into what's called like a live CD mode, which is where it will look and act like an operating system, but it won't save anything until we either put it in persistent mode, which we're not going to do, or until we actually install it, which is what we're going to do here again once this screen finishes loading. Okay, I don't care about that, that's fine. Okay, so now we've got our virtual desktop here. Right at this point, you could use this like an operating system. Like I said, it's running in a live CD mode, which is good if you're trying to access files on a different, like on a host operating system or things like that. Typically, if you're going to run it as a live CD, you would install it on a USB drive and keep that with you. Then if you've got to go help somebody with their computer, you plug in, reboot into live CD mode, then you can get access to all their files, do what you got to do, and then get out without damaging their existing operating system. So that's the mode that it's presently in, but we don't want to do that. We actually want to go over here and click install Linux. Linux Mint. Wow, I have not had coffee today. So I've gone ahead and done that. I'm actually going to make this window a little bit bigger here, just so we don't miss anything. And then we're going to go through a few steps for the install process. First thing is, well, what language do you want? There's a bunch to choose from in here. English, it's good for me, so I'm going to click continue. And then it'll take a second. Oh, well, gosh, that's a bit of a problem. So by default, it wanted to give us 10 gigs. So that's not going to work. We're going to need at least 10.7. So we're going to quit. And we're going to say, okay, we're going to quit. I'm just going to go ahead and close this. That's fine. We're going to save. Nope, we're just going to power it off. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Let's see if we can actually go in here and change the storage. Tell you what, let's just create a new hard drive here. We're going to say use the virtual disk image like we did before. we're gonna do dynamically allocated. The 10, you know what, this time we're gonna do 20. We're gonna give it up to 20 gigs this time. So we'll go ahead and click create, and yeah, it's now it's new virtual disk 1, and we'll click OK, and we'll try that again. All right, so we'll say start, and no, cancel. Yeah, we'll just say start. You can, I just hit the enter button on my keyboard there to bypass that 10-second wait. You can do that if you want, or you can just wait, not a big deal. But again, we've got to kind of go through some of this process again. Luckily, we didn't get too far in there. So we will get past this screen, get into our virtual desktop, and click install Linux Mint again, and hopefully this time we've got enough disk space. So we'll say install. We'll go ahead and close that. It's just an error mode, or an error message that it's throwing because of the way it's rendering video at this point. So I just clicked out of it. It's fine at this point. So I'm going to click continue again because we want to install in English. Here it's saying, do we want to install third-party software for graphics, drivers, Wi-Fi, hardware, Flash, MP3? Basically, do we want to just get it set up from the start? And yeah, we may as well make this as easy on ourselves as possible. If you're in a hurry, though, don't check this box because it will have to connect to the internet and download a bunch of stuff and go through additional installation processes while it's getting set up for the first time. If there's stuff in here you know you won't use, you're probably not even watching this, but this will just kind of take some of the pain away from getting some other stuff installed on that first boot. So we're going to go ahead and say install this third-party stuff. We'll click continue. And we'll give it just a second here to think about what it's going to do. Basically, at this point, I believe it is kind of scanning the hardware that's available to it to see what it's going to need, for network stuff and for video stuff and that kind of thing, to make sure it gets the right drivers so that we don't have any hardware compatibility issues once the install starts going and once we actually get into the desktop. So this part can take a little while it goes through its initial processes there. Okay, so now it's saying what kind of installation do we want to do here. Because we're doing a virtualization, because we're using a brand new virtual hard drive, we can just erase the disk and install Linux Mint. That's fine. If you wanted to do something like encrypting the hard drive, you could. If you wanted to do logical volume management, you could. That's kind of outside the scope of what we're doing here, so we're just going to go with the basics at this point, and we're going to click install now. All this is fine. Yeah, so it's just saying, are you sure you want to write all these changes to the disk? Yes, we do. So we'll click continue, and now it's actually going to start going through that installation process. This may take a while. Oh, it's going to ask us some more questions, like where are you from? Yep, I'm close to Denver, so we'll click OK. It's going to ask me about keyboard layouts. Again, I'm using American English. You can change this to, I know a lot of people like to use the Dvorak keyboard layout, which I just don't understand, but more power to you. But there's a lot of different keyboard layouts in here that you can use. But we're just going to use US English for all of this. And then we'll click next, and we're going to call this my name. We're going to call this DB Tech Reviews, and the computer name DB VirtualBox is fine. Username DB is fine. Because I like to be super secure here. I gave it a super weak password. I typed in password. Don't do that if you're trying to set up an operating system to be secure and not easily hackable. Don't use password. But again, I just do that for the sake of all of these tutorial videos, just because it's easier to remember for me. But then I take it one step further and I just say, you know what, log me in automatically. I don't care. So if this is going to be a shared environment for you, though, you may not want to do that. You'll want to give it a username and a password that's applicable to you, and probably not have it log in automatically. So this is just what I'm doing for the sake of these tutorials. So go ahead and click continue. And so now it's copying files. It's actually been copying files in the background, I believe, since it's saying that it's almost done already. So we're going to go ahead and let this do its thing. And then it may ask us a couple of more questions. I don't know that it will, but it should finish doing all of this, and then it'll ask us to reboot, and then it'll ask us a couple more questions, and then we should be able to get into the whole process here. So yeah, so at this point we're just going to kind of hang out, let it wait, and do its thing. This is a good time if you don't want to sit here and watch. Maybe go get a drink like I'm about to go do. If you need to go to the bathroom or whatever, you'll probably have a few minutes to do that. So this is a really good time in your world to do that. I am going to cut through all of this so that you don't have to wait through all of this like I'm about to. So again, if you need to go to the bathroom, get a drink, whatever, have at. I will be right back. So one thing I really can't say about Mint Linux, especially because again it's based on Ubuntu, it's super easy to install, whether you're doing it as your primary operating system or a virtualized operating system, whatever the case may be. This one's really easy. So once it finishes running through the rest of this, we're basically done. There's a couple other little things that we'll do real quick, just to not overcomplicate this video. I will end up doing a follow-up video here, but there's a couple of things that I want to show you once we're done here, to kind of compare and contrast it to, like the other day when I did the Kali Linux. That one was a bit more complicated to actually get set up and running correctly, and I'll kind of show you some of that real quick, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up because it's going to be kind of a long video anyway, and I know that it's just easier to take certain things in smaller chunks, especially when you're learning things. So we'll just touch on a couple of things at that point, but then we'll wrap that up in a separate video, just to make this video not quite as long. Okay, so that's really how easy that was. At this point, we've got a couple of options. We can either keep testing the operating system at this point, but where's the fun in that? We just installed all of this. We may as well go use it. So we're going to go ahead and say restart now. Let's see if it throws a message at me. Nope. So we're just going to go ahead and reboot. Okay, yeah, this is the message I was waiting for. It says, please remove the installation medium and press enter. This is actually really neat because VirtualBox does this automatically. So you just hit enter. Oh, really? There it goes. And it just reboots. So we don't have to go through that process of removing that installation media, which I really appreciate. I'll go and close that. So here we get a welcome screen, just ways to get familiar with it, things like that. I'm actually going to uncheck that because we may want to look at that later. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. But you can get things like drivers and apps and documentation. You want to donate because you appreciate what they're doing. You can do that there as well. If you want to get involved in their community or join their chat room or forums. Lots of really great links here from the start. So I am going to go ahead and close that. We're going to let that start back up next time. But what I wanted to point out here was that when I did the Kali Linux install and we got to this point, it was confined to just a very small square screen size, like a 640 by 480 or something ridiculous, and we had to go through a lot of command line stuff to make it even think about going full screen. And we had to install a bunch of extra stuff, and it was tedious, and I think it was unnecessary. I really think the guys at Kali could fix that. But what I really like about this is I can just double click that, and it just goes full screen, and that is really, really neat. The other thing that I really appreciate about this is, like we did again in Kali, there's always pretty much always a guest editions add-on CD for Linux distributions for VirtualBox. And again, we had to install all of that through command line, because we go up here to devices and click insert guest edition CD image. It popped up like it was supposed to. Yep, I want to go ahead and run this. But in the other one, in Kali, it just didn't work. It freaked out. It didn't work. I had to do everything through command line. If you want to learn how to do that, there's another video for that. But here we're going to go ahead and give it whatever password we want there, or whatever password we told it at the beginning that we wanted to use. And I'm going to just say authenticate. And now it's just installing all of the additional stuff to make it the most compatible with VirtualBox. And again, they've made that super, super easy to do. It's a seamless, painless process to virtualize Mint or Linux Mint on VirtualBox, especially when you compare it to other systems like Kali Linux. So we're done. Like, that's me rambling was enough. So we'll go ahead and click press return to close. Then we can actually come over here and right click this, and we can just eject it. We don't need it anymore. It's good to go. So yeah, that's it. That's all there is to getting Mint Linux or Linux Mint, however you want to say that, installed in VirtualBox on a Windows machine. Gonna go ahead and wrap it up there. Hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up. It would really mean a lot to me, and it would help me and the channel out a bunch. If there's anything in this series or my other series or whatever that you'd like to see, be sure to leave a comment down below, letting me know, if it's updates or if it's certain applications or whatever. If there's something that you'd like to see or something you'd like to discuss, an issue you're having or whatever, leave all that in the comments below. I love helping you guys out and having conversations with you about what you're going through. So comments down below, that would be amazing. Also, if you really want to help the channel, I'll have a link to my Patreon down below. Go over there, be a patron, that would be amazing. But yeah, I think that's all the shtick at the end. Gonna go ahead and wrap it up there. Thanks for your time. I always appreciate your support, and I'll talk to you in the next one.